Yeah, so maybe we can get started just so that we can make good use of our time. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. My name is Noemia Piri, and I'm joining you from Angola, Luanda. It's very nice to have all of you join us today. I'm very excited to see people joining us from Qatar, from Nairobi, Kenya, people from Brazil. Nice to see you all. So as you're joining, please let us know where you're joining us from, and also let us know your names. We are very excited to have you all here. So last week we kicked off our meeting, very, very insightful meeting. We had panelists from USA and from Rome. We had Dr. David and Silva, who gave us a lot of insights into the introduction of AI in impact measurement. So today, I'm very excited because we are moving from theory to practical. So we're going to look at the practical side of AI in impact measurement. I have today the team from Real Senses, and we're going to show you a practical session. We're going to do case studies, and we're also going to show you a demo of our platform, our data and impact management dashboards. So before we start, I would like our team from Real Senses to just introduce themselves, tell us their names and also what they do at Real Senses. Then we can go into the agenda for this meeting, and then we go into the presentation. So let's start with you, Yao.
Thank you, Noemia. Hi, everyone. My name is Yao Levy, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Real Senses.
Thank you, Yao.
I guess I'll go, Noemia?
Yes, please. Yes.
Wonderful. Hi, my name is Ngesa Maturu. I am a Senior Partnerships Manager at Rural Senses. I'm currently in the city under the sun, which is currently raining. That is Nairobi. But it's such a joy to be here to share and to learn with all of you today.
So let's Annabelle also just introduce herself.
Hello, my name is Annabelle. I hope you all can hear me. I'm a project coordinator at Rural Senses, and I'm happy to go through with the training with you.
Thank you so much. Annabelle, please, let's have the agenda so that we can just show what we are having today. So like I mentioned, our session today is very practical. I want to show you how we are leveraging AI in our impact measurements from end to end, from data collection up to the actual impact management. So today we are going to have our speakers who've already introduced themselves. And then we also, like I said, we are having a practical session. I would like to encourage you to write your questions in the comment sections as they are presenting. And I want to make mention that today our presentation will go for 1 hour, and we may spill over to have a Q&A session. So if you're able to join us for a Q&A session, that would be also wonderful. But if you're only able to stay for the sessions, you can also get the recording at the end of the session. But I want to encourage you to just write the questions if you have any as the presentations are going on. So I'm particularly excited today, and I just want to dive into the actual session. So I would let Yao just take it up.
Thank you so much, Noemia, for organizing this. And I would like to start by sharing a few slides. So Annabelle, if you can please allow me, thank you. So the purpose of this webinar series in general is to increase the accessibility for how actually people in practice are using AI for impact measurement and M&E and evaluation and MEL and all the acronyms you can think of. Beyond all the conversations, we want to get practical and to show step-by-step process of how it works, and that's the purpose of this episode today. Before I start the actual presentation, I want maybe a reminder for everyone that here we're talking about artificial intelligence, and it has a lot of benefits. But we mustn't forget that the purpose of why we're here is to actually enhance the human intelligence, and not to forget that we can use AI not to ignore what people think and know and care about, but actually to enhance that. So this is a reminder, and we'll show you today how we can use AI in a responsible way without eliminating the human intelligence. A little bit about Rural Census. Rural Census started around 7 years ago at the University of Cambridge, and it started as a research project. We were thinking, how can we enhance the information flow and the insight flow between development practitioners, basically practitioners that want to do things that are good for people and for the planet, and between the people they work with, if it's vulnerable communities, if it's the environment, how can we improve that flow? And we started with a methodology that we developed as a research, and step by step throughout our work, we automated and digitalized every part of the process. Now we are focusing primarily on impact measurement and management. And from 7 years ago, when we started like a consultancy company that just does things the traditional way, now we have an end-to-end automated way. And this is what we're going to show you today, how it works. Okay, a little bit about the clients we work with, from really big foundations like IKEA Foundation, MasterCard Foundation, to really small and community-based organizations. We work with all kinds of organizations. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about applications of AI. If I talk about impact, evaluation, and learning and management, sometimes people split it into these 4 stages: the design of the research, the actual research, the data collection, the analysis, and the dissemination of the learning. And in each part of it, there are places where AI can bring benefits. For example, building a theory of change, supporting brainstorming, writing surveys themselves, data analysis of qualitative data, synthesis of evidence, chatbots, visualization. There's a lot of stuff. And Rural Census is in a journey to bring all of these capabilities into one place, one-stop shop. And to date, we automated and we implemented most of these features. Some of them are coming soon. They're not implemented yet, but most of them are already implemented. And the purpose of the session today is to show you how it actually works in practice with examples from our partners. Beautiful. So with that in mind, I will now switch from my presentation to the actual platform. And I encourage people also during the presentation to ask questions. You don't need to wait to the end. You can write on the chat your questions as we go. Wonderful. So let's start. I'm going to start sharing my screen. And the starting point is this screen, what we call the project portfolio, where us as MEL professionals manage all of the evaluations and the measurements we have at the moment. I have for this demonstration 8 test projects that we will work, but as many projects that you have can be all managed in one place. And if I want to start a new evaluation, I simply click on a create project. And through the create project, it brings me to the screen where I can enter the different elements of the project. It's the description, the vision, the sector, etc. To save us time, I already created an imaginary project that I call it Water for All, and I already entered some of the details of this project. And so we can see the name of this project is Water for All, and it's about an innovative initiative dedicated to ensuring sustainable access to clean and safe water in households in Zambia. And it has a vision to create a future where every household in Zambia thrives with access to reliable, clean water, transforming water security into a catalyst of growth and empowerment. I chose the location, a specific location in Zambia, and I also wrote activities of this is what I'm planning to do in this project. If it's a needs assessment, designing the infrastructure, conducting community trainings, doing a handover, I have a place also to put any documents for this project. Once I complete this phase of project details, what our system does, it basically studies the project and creates a profile for this project that will then be used in any of the next steps of conducting the evaluation. So this part is fully human-led. There's no AI. AI will not write our vision, and it will not write our description, and it would not tell us what we did. This is a place for humans. But once we start with this place, and once we complete this part, AI will kick in and help us in each of the next steps of the project. So what is the next step? As a project doing evaluation, one of the first steps, before I even build an impact model or a theory of change or all of this fancy stuff, the first step is to learn what other people are doing in the world about that and what similar projects happened. For this part, I have here the section that's called references. And once I click on the references, I basically see a literature review that was already conducted for me. So the AI engine already found similar projects that are similar to my project and that I should learn from. And I can review them. For example, I see final evaluation of community-based water, sanitation, and hygiene program in Indonesia. And I can go into this reference. So I can see in Indonesia and Myanmar, and I can see the project description. I can see why it's similar to my project, to my Water for All project. And I can also see why it's different because it's in different countries and it's a little bit different focus and gender, etc. So I can see here and I can review, and I can also have a link to the actual source. Now, what the platform does is already saves us the time of going and researching similar projects and finding reputable sources. All this is done for me. The searching, the filtering of projects that are the most relevant for me, and summarizing them and telling me what's different and what's new. If I want more references, I can simply click on this button. I will not do it now because it takes some time. It takes around 10 minutes for the system to do this research because it's really thorough. But I can click on this button as many times as I want to get more and more resources for my benefit. Once these resources are in, they are also part of this of my project profile, and the system learns from that what happened in similar projects. So even if I didn't do any data collection and any research about my particular project, I can already know what happened in similar projects. Amazing, I already saved time. What might be my next step? So the next step in evaluation is also to identify who are my affected stakeholders. So here, again, I can start with AI and ask the system based on the information I gave and all the references it found to suggest who might be the affected stakeholders by this project. So the system basically gives me suggestions that for my Water for All project, the affected population are rural households, women and children, water management committees, schools, etc. And for each one of them, it gives me the description, and I can edit the description, I can delete it, I can also add new stakeholders. Again, this is AI giving me suggestions, but me as the MEL professional, I lead the way, and I decide what's correct and what's not correct. Amazing. After that, I can go to start building my theory of change. So I already have my project goal and my mission. I have my stakeholders, I have the activities. The next step is to define my output. So let's edit my output. And I can, again, start with AI. And I don't need to worry about how to phrase them. And I don't need to review all the references to see what output they suggest to focus on. All of this is, I get the first draft automatic. I get, here see a list of output of the infrastructure design, the constructed water infrastructure, the trained community members, all of these outputs are already ready as part of my draft theory of change, and I can edit them. And I can continue and now go to edit outcomes. Maybe the most interesting part, because now I'm asking the AI, what do you predict will be the change for the community, for the people as a result of my project? I don't need to start from scratch. I don't need to manually go to all the resources and analyze them. I get the AI to do that for me. So the AI is basically reviewing my project, reviewing all the different references, and suggest standardized outcomes that might be the results of my project. Each part takes time because there is a long process behind the scene of refining the data. It's not like asking ChatGPT, because this is a system that's specifically unique for MEL professionals with all the best practices already embedded, and everything in one place. So I see some stuff already in: improved access to clean water, health outcomes, the burden of water collection, improved school attendance that we know is always related, etc., etc. Wonderful. Let's do a recap. Now I can go back to my project and I can already see some stuff in. So I see 6 references that I can review. I see 8 outputs and 13 outcomes. And I can also see SDG breakdown. So based on the different outcomes, I can see which SDGs my project is addressing. Basically, I'm focusing on clean, good health and well-being, clean water, but also gender equality. All of this is part of the profile of my project. And I can also go and visualize the theory of change as of yet. So I can see, I get here a really nice visualization of the theory of change, from activities to outputs to outcomes. And the next step can be defining long-term outcomes that would appear here. But it already gives me a nice visualization of the flow that I can export as a PDF and send to my partners and colleagues for this project. An important part about this platform is that it supports adaptive evaluation. What is adaptive evaluation? It means a theory of change that is flexible and changing. The example now I gave is only based on information I provided and references. But as the system receives more data, for example, interviews from the actual stakeholders and evidence from the field, it will suggest changes to the theory of change. It will suggest, maybe this outcome is not so relevant, and it suggests a new outcome that is relevant. Everything suggested by the AI engine based on the data that is actually received. So I can manage a flexible theory of change using this platform. My next step is that the system will allow me is also to create indicators and to collect data to populate the indicators and to actually measure my theory of change. That we will cover in the next part of the presentation. And I think now is a good time to stop. And if there are any questions, happy to answer. And also, I think there is a little poll that we want to share. So back to you, Noemia.
Thank you so much, Yael. That was very, very good. I just have one question. When you talked about references and, how important is understanding projects that are similar to a project that one is evaluating?
Sorry, can you repeat that, Noemia?
Yeah, sure. I was saying, you talked about references, how the system can assist in, finding references in terms of projects that are relevant or similar to the project that one is evaluating. So in this case, in short, I'm just talking about the desk review. How important is the desk review in impact measurement?
Yeah, I mean, it's really important. And I see questions in the chat also relate to that. So I see a question, does it provide links to the freely accessible sources only or also paid version? So it only, all the links it provides is for links you can access freely, even if it's a paid, so we have at Rural Census access to some closed databases with resources that require payment, but as part of using the software, you get open access to that. And it's important also to know that you can, I see more questions, that you can also add your own resources. So to add to the profile of the project. So basically I can easily add a new resource, to give it a name, to put the link or to upload the actual file, and through that to do my own literature review, to add everything that AI does, the system allows the user to do themselves. And I can tell you from our experience, this process is something that usually takes about a week to do a proper literature review and to review all the relevant resources. So from something that takes a week, it becomes something that takes a few minutes, and it's a big change.
Yeah, I was actually just coming to that to say I once did a project and it took me like quite a number of weeks, because I was like doing about 12 projects. So it took me over a month just to review data that is similar to what we're evaluating. So just something that can take you a week or a month, and then to just taking a few minutes, I think it's very impressive. Very, very impressive. However, I just have a follow-up. How do organizations overcome resistance to, AI adoption in traditional MEL systems?
That's a really good question. So we see a lot of fear from AI in development organization, and it makes sense because these organizations are conservative by nature, because they work with vulnerable communities, and taking risks is dangerous. There's a lot at stake. And I think this is why a system that doesn't run around and let AI do everything and just sends you the last resort is important, and instead a system that walks through and works with the practitioner and allows the practitioner to use it to their knowledge and to review what's happening is very important. And it can allow even organizations that have some fears and some concerns from what AI does to trust it more and to give it more benefit to improve the productivity without adding the risk.
Thank you so much. So we've seen the first step in the evaluation from the system, which is a theory of change, basically talking about references, coming up with outcomes, indicators, also coming up with identifying the stakeholders. I want us to move to the next step, the data collection, the building of the questions, building the surveys. So for this session, I want to invite Ngesa just to take us through the system, how data collection looks like.
All right. Thank you, Noemia, for that. So I'm going to build up from what Yo has said. So as an organization, you have this brilliant idea. You've looked at the communities you're serving or the people that you're working with. You have this plan, which is the theory of change. And many times after that, what happens is now you'll come up with a monitoring and evaluation plan where you'll say, okay, we have the following outcomes that we are hoping to happen. And then we have this following outputs that we're hoping to happen. Sorry, guys, I have a cold, as I mentioned earlier, so bear with me if I need to stop in the middle. So you have an outcome, you have outputs, and then eventually most organizations will have indicators. Now, there's also been a debate of, do we really need indicators, or should we just have open indicators where we interview the people freely and hear what change is actually happening from our intervention? So whichever the direction your organization takes, the system allows for that to happen. Now, what happens next is most people, of course, will start with collecting data. So before you start, you need to know where you are. And what this means is you'll need to, one, design the questionnaires. And the second thing you'll need to do is figure out who is collecting the data, what type of data is being collected. So is it quantitative? Is it qualitative? Is it both? What serves the outcome that you want? So once you decide this, then you'd go to designing the questionnaire. So today we won't talk about methodology. We'll talk more about the tools and the technology. So let's start with designing a questionnaire. So many times you'll sit, you'll huddle and think, okay, what do I want to achieve? Once you do that, and I'll allow Annabelle, who will be working with me today, just to assist me because of my cold, show us how this would work in the system. So many times you'll find you'll design your surveys on either Word or on Excel, and then many people ideally will either use Kobo Collect or ODK or TarotWorks to collect this information. Now, the challenge usually is once you collect, what happens? And what we're hoping to show you in this session is how do you have an end-to-end process from data collection to translation, transcription, analysis, and eventually visualization. How do you do all of this in one platform without having to use multiple software? Imagine if ODK and Kobo had a baby with Power BI and ChatGPT. That is what we're going to show you. So Annabelle, if you could please take us through first how you can now seamlessly create a questionnaire, that would be wonderful. Over to you, Annabelle.
Thank you so much, Ngesa. I'll be taking you through creating questionnaires, and I'll have a sample of questions. Let me share my screen. So here are just 5 questions I roughly created to do with monitoring and evaluation. So each question shows how we can add onto the system in different ways. So I will illustrate. So I will just search up a previous project that I had created earlier. We call it the webinar. Then we'll add a new survey. We'll give it a name. So I've created the monitoring survey. So firstly, I'll show you how to create a header image. So this is the image that you want people to view when the interviews are being displayed. So I had one already, so I'll just create one with rural. There it is. Then the next step is to add questions. We can add questions, we can add groups, we can add matrices and the rest. So we'll start by adding a question. So we can have different types of questions. We can have matrix questions, we can have open-ended questions, we can have single choice questions and multiple choice questions. So we'll just add this manually. So our first question is this: how frequently do you engage in monitoring and evaluation activities? So we only need one choice picked. So we'll just copy this. And add here as a question. Then you also need to prompt, like we only want them to just pick one question. So we'll add a subtext and say, choose one. Then the category, you can have any. So probably you want it to cover impact. You can pick that category. My type of question is that I only want people to select one answer. And the graph, you can choose any graph to display your answer. So I'd choose a horizontal bar and input the choices. So here you can either choose, you can either add the choices manually or you can add choices from a list. So instead of copying one by one, you can come and select here and add choice from a list and input there. Then you click add choices. So it picks automatically, then you can delete the empty spaces. Then you add. So it adds automatically. So I think that's just one example on how we can keep adding questions, but we can move over to Ngesa.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that, Annabelle. So ideally, what Annabelle was showcasing just before you leave the screen, Annabelle, was you're able to create different questions. So whether you're collecting qualitative data, quantitative data, data that requires you to show images, data that requires you to have multiple selections, you're able to build your questionnaire into the system here. Now, once all of this is done, because a lot of these other tools are open source, you can ideally move this particular survey to Kobo or ODK, whatever works best for you. And to do that is very simple. All you need to do is, Annabelle, if you could click on the share button. So you would publish this survey, then click on the share button. You'd be able to get a URL, and that URL, ideally, you just import it into Kobo. And once you've imported it into Kobo, your enumerators can be able to see the survey, of course, with a few configurations here and there, but it's literally plug and play. It's a 2-minute job. You can also use the editor's link or the collector's link. So one of the things the system allows you to do is, let's say you build a survey and you need to share it either with your donors or your different field teams across, and you need them to give you feedback. You could be able to now use the system to share these links with them, for them to quickly put comments or even do the edits themselves, so that you can be able to move. The other thing that the system allows, and maybe I'll now take over the screen. Annabelle, thank you so much for taking the time to take us through that. And I will quickly jump there. Let me see. Please let me know once you can see my screen.
Not yet. Now, yes.
Okay, wonderful. So the other thing that usually happens when you're collecting data, especially if you're in Africa or Southeast Asia, usually you'll find that a lot of these areas have multiple languages spoken within one region. We always say, like, you need to walk to 5 different places, and within a radius of 1 kilometer, you can find 5 different languages. So this is an example of a survey that has been completed. You can see there are different categories, so you can be able to put your headers, whether it's your demographic information or your socioeconomic information. And once you do this, now you can add languages. So you can see, for example, this was a survey being done in Kenya. Now, Kenya has 42 official languages. I hear there'll be a 43rd soon. And the survey was being collected across the northern, the east, and the northern, eastern, and western part of Kenya. What you can do once you finish the survey in English is you can now be able to add multiple languages. And so you can see here we added Turkana, Kamba, Masai, and Kalenjin. And then what happens is the AI, which already has this information, will start translating these surveys into those particular languages. So what this will mean is your enumerators on the ground can be able to view their survey in whatever language that they speak, and they'll just need to change the language on either Taro or DK or Kobo. But it allows for, and then also you can translate and transcribe. So if I want, I can come here and add Spanish, because I've always wanted to speak Spanish. And I can add it, and then it'll come here, and then you can start the translation of that survey into that particular language. It will give you hints of what it thinks it is, but it's always good for a human to actually put it in there so that you don't lose context or innuendo and things like that. So once this is done, it's good to go. Your teams in the field can go and collect data. One interesting thing you'll find is, for example, this survey has both qualitative and quantitative data that can be collected. And so this is what it will look like, and it makes that process very easy. Now, you're done with building your survey. It's in multiple languages. Your enumerators have gone to the ground. Make sure you have all your permits. And now data is being collected. Now, for the quantitative data, many times it analyzes in real time. And for the qualitative data, what happens is, as the teams in the field collect the data and they submit it, once they submit it, it comes into the system. Now, I just want to show you, and I hope you'll be able to hear. This is an example of an interview that was done for a project in Kenya, so the same project. And this project was looking to understand the resilience of communities in an area called Siaya when it comes to climate change. Now, they went and they had the conversations. Now, this area particularly spoke a language called Luo. And the enumerator asked, in your own words, how would you describe climate change? So they are talking to the respondent. So immediately the interview is over, they would use their phone, and the data would come in. Can you hear? Are we able to hear?
Yes,
Yeah, we can hear.
Yes, wonderful. So this is, you can actually hear the actual interview and how the questions were being asked and what they were saying. So I'm sure not many of us understand Luo. Also, this is usually good for quality controllers, practitioners, because sometimes your enumerators go to the ground and you don't know how they're asking the questions, the quality of their probing and their prompting. So being able to receive this information almost in real time when they get internet to submit is great, because you can easily pivot and let them know, maybe ask a little bit more when somebody responds like this. So this also makes sure that the quality of your interviews and the data you're receiving is great, because you're able to start analyzing in real time. So that's the conversation which you can listen into. And then here, it transcribes in the actual language. So you can see here, this is Luo, which I cannot read, unfortunately, but it would now transcribe it for us. And then it would translate it to English. And this person was saying, life is really hard for us who work and earn 100 or 50 shillings a day. I swear sometimes you're always stunned and you're always stranded and you do not know what to do. You buy the flour or borrow it, and so on and so forth. So what this means is you're able now to start seeing the conversation. Something interesting you'll realize is that what the enumerator was asking is not here. And those are some of the things that happen now during the translation. We'll only leave the response of the respondent as they're saying it, and not the questions the enumerator is asking. And this is mostly just for analysis and better understanding. And then here we have the ability to accept, edit, and reject. Now, we always say it's human-assisted AI. And the reason we say this is because, you know, there are some words in languages or communities that only those people know. Like in Kenya, we say mambo ni matatu. Now, if it was to be translated that directly from Kiswahili, it means things are only three. But if you ask a Kenyan, and if there are any here, please feel free to write in the chat what that would imply. Or if you say you live in Kanairo, Kanairo is nowhere in the dictionary or even in the languages, but it essentially means I live in Nairobi. And you'll realize people ideally don't talk proper English all the time. When people are in their comfort zone, they mix up languages. And so that's why it's important for a human sometimes to just come and verify and ensure that what the AI is translating is actually what is being said. All right, so your transcription is happening in real time. You're not working hard. Your translation is happening. What next? So once this happens, and I'll take you to the same project, the CCG project. So you have a dashboard where all your projects are appearing. And I'll just lightly show you what this analysis looks like. Like I said, for this particular project, we used a mixed methodology. So we used something called the user perceived value, which was a card game, which we would show people to understand what was most important to them in life. We also asked them quantitative questions and we asked them qualitative questions. So as the data is being submitted into the system, what happens is it starts showing the results in real time. So for example, for this community, we asked them, which of these things are most important for you in life? And you can see the visualization here. You're also able to geotag where the data was being collected, if that's something you want to know, so you can be able to visualize it here. And then here was, let's go to an interesting question. So this is like the first question we asked them. Let me go to something interesting. So we asked them, for example, in your own words, how would you describe climate change? And even before I go to this, remember when Annabelle was telling you about the different categories? So maybe when you're asking questions, you're asking about various categories across, and here they are grouped. So you can see I have climate change, I have communications and skills development, I have education, etc., all under the same topic. So let's start with this question, which I'd gone to. So in your own words, how would you describe climate change? So what will happen is, remember those conversations that were translated, the AI will do an analysis. And clearly from the beginning here, you can see it says that when people think about climate change, how they reference climate change is food security. And the next one was on yield. So 53% of the, let's see, of the 304 people we spoke to, when they spoke about climate change or how they understand it in their own words, they were referencing to food security. And then the rest, some of them, 42% say the yield, others were thinking of preservation of nature. So these are the topics that the AI is able to pick. But they spoke about this thing. So they talked about food security. But did they talk about food security positively or negatively? So you can see again in their own ones, when they spoke about climate change, surprisingly, 27 of them thought about food security positively, and then 64% of them thought about it negatively. And then this other 10% spoke about it in neutrality. Now, let's say I want to know what exactly did they say about, let's go to the next one, yield. So what exactly influenced the AI to pick this as the topic? So if I come down here, we can now see the narratives, the conversations themselves. So this person said, when I look at the change of climate, these are trees that people did not plant well, that require the trees to be planted in plenty. After planting those trees, we can see changes in our community. We can see produce, a lot of food, if only we plant a lot of trees. So you can see how this person is thinking about climate change. And what made it say it was thinking about it positively is this sentence that has been highlighted. We can sit down as a whole community, we mix diet, we mix local crops by doing crop rotation, and we can be good. This other one spoke about food security, but negatively. And so here you can see, but previously we could predict the weather and we would know the season of long rains would bring a lot of grass or grazing, and we would not be worried. So now we start understanding the people that we're looking to work with properly. Why are they thinking about climate change the way they're thinking about climate change, right? That's one way you can look at the data. The other thing is you can do something really fun. So for example, we asked people, are you worried about climate change? Now, quickly, on the chat, I'll ask you a question. If you're not on your laptop or on your phone, please get your fingers there. And I want to ask you guys, in this community, do you think it was more men or more women who are worried about climate change? What do you guys think? Is it women who worry more, or is it men? If you could quickly just put your answers there. And if Yao, you could help me read them, because my screen, I don't have a double screen at the moment. Well, maybe I can see
see
you.
we have a few people saying men,
Right. Women.
but also women. Okay,
Women.
now it's a bit more in towards the women
Yeah.
in the chat.
Okay. From my 10 responses, or is it 8? I think people say women. Let's find out. So one thing I can use the tool to do is I can come here and I can group this question based on gender. And I can now look, let's see, is it more men or women who are worried? So in Siaya, we can see when we asked, are you worried about climate change? Men, 38% of them said yes, and women said no, which is interesting. So women worry less. We shall live longer, it seems. And those are just some of the fun things you can do with the system. Another thing that could be thought-provoking or something interesting that you can do is, let's say, you've looked, you've searched, you've grouped questions, you've read the narratives, but there's things you still want to unearth. So we have this cool feature here called Ask Ngesa. And it seems I had asked Ngesa my questions initially, but I will copy my question again. So Ask Ngesa is like having a GPT or a chat GPT within your own data set. So it's more secure, and it's just a way you can interact with your data more. So no more static reports, no more somebody else interpreting the information for you. You can actually come here and have fun with it. So keeping that gender lens going. I've asked chat, I don't know if this is hindering you from seeing, but the question I've asked it, are there any concerns about climate change that are unique to men? And so I have asked that question, and usually Ngesa takes a little bit of time to think through it, but that's because it's going through all the questions, all the responses, and voila. So here it says men express concerns about the changes in their community due to climate change, such as increased frequency of extreme weather events and their impact. Now, that's interesting. So what if I asked it to check the same, but for women? How do I move this cursor so I can... Okay, there we go. So I will ask it the same, And I will ask it in regards to now women. There we go. And so it's going to check. And so we've seen initially that men are scared about extreme weather. Let's see if something is unique for women. And so again, like I said, it's going through all the questions, it's going through all the filters. And I'll show you something, just how it came to this analysis as it's fetching the data for women. Okay, let's go to that as it thinks. So how did it come up with this response? So it actually gives you a detailed description of, to determine the concerns around climate change expressed by men. It says here, let's go back. I examined the interview data related to gender and climate perceptions. And then the questions about gender helped identify responses from men. So it's giving you its logic. And then it goes here and shows you what questions allowed it to get this response. So if I come here, I can actually come and see that particular question. Now, the results for the women are back, and women farmers face unique concerns with climate change, such as impact of drought on crop yields and financial losses due to loans taken for their farm inputs. So immediately you can tell here that women perhaps are less risk averse when it comes to money, or worry more about that. And you can keep playing with Ngasa and asking it different questions about your data set to give you more feedback. So this is a lot about that. The other thing I think you'll find interesting as I stop is now what the system allows you to do is to be able to build your own reports. So you no longer have to take screen grabs or import images or do all of that. We have a reporting system. So I will come here. And here you can come and create your report. So I can name it webinar test. And then you can, so if you have a reporting template for, let's say, your donors or internally how you like to consume information, you can have that template preset here. And if you don't, you can just write the way you usually write on Word there. So I don't have any templates I would like to use at the moment.
Yes, so we will also show this picture a bit later.
Okay, sure, yeah. Okay, cool. So then I will stop there if we're going to cover that. But thank you for indulging me. Feel free to ask any questions. I hope you've finally seen what it looks like when Kobo or Decay, Power BI have a baby, and happy to answer any questions you have moving forward. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much, Ngesa, for that presentation. Very, very wonderful presentation. You know, this is a type of platform that gives you wings, you know, like you're able to just understand the whole process from data to the actual management, which is very impressive. I mean, the time that it takes to do these things, very, very impressive. So before we go to poll number 2, I think I would like us to just do poll number 1, and then we'll switch to Yao, and then we'll come back to poll number 2. So Annabelle, if you can help us with poll number 1, please. So as we are waiting for the poll, I have a few questions in Gesta. I remember, you know, a few years back, you find that people would go in the field to collect data, and one would just go and sit down there on the tree and, you know, they answer their questions. So how does the platform ensure that, you know, we do not have such cases? Like we have the actual people going to the actual places to collect the data.
Wonderful. Naomi, that's an excellent question. I think even one was more interesting. Somebody used to sit and interview their parents in their house and their cousin, and then they would say, the enumerator would say they collected data.
I know.
One of the things that what it allows for is for you to geotag the location of your participants. So 2 things. If it's open sampling where you don't know where the participants are, you can actually see the foot trail of where the data was collected from. And if you know where they are, then you can verify that that place was actually visited and the data was actually located, and it's not family sentiments being shared.
Wonderful, wonderful. That's very nice because like I said, a few years back, I mean, people would do all types of crazy things, you know, and then you find that the insights that are coming are just insights that are not from the actual community. So
Correct.
Yeah, so in the meantime, please, let's keep voting on the poll. Let's keep answering. If we have answered, we can also show the results so that I can just get a comment from Yao, because Yao had talked about this session in particular.
Yeah, I think it was a wonderful session. Actually, Ngesa was amazing in showing us actual analysis from a real project that she led. But I think it's also interesting to see, now we're asking people to answer a poll. I can just quickly show people the results of the poll from the last webinar. As a reminder, this is a webinar series. So last week we had the first episode, this is the second episode, and we have 2 more to go. And one of the things we asked people before is, what do you hope to gain from this webinar series? And if we go into the analysis, so as expected, most people were talking about practical skills attainment. So basically to learn something new. But we also see 9% of the people talking about trust. So it's interesting. If I click on trust, I can filter the data and show exactly what people said. So people talked about the benefit of using AI in evaluation, but also how to mitigate risk related to trust and AI insights, and some clarity and incentive that calms down the AI fear in the industry. So that's also interesting, and I wonder what will be the results from people on this episode. But this is also reflecting a little bit of a question I saw in the chat, that people ask, okay, but you build a theory of change based on a problem you already had in mind, and the project I showed kind of already knew what is happening. But how can we build projects that first ask the questions about what is the expectation or what is the challenge, and only build the theory of change based on that? So this is exactly what this platform is for. So you can also first ask very open questions and let people say what their problems they're facing, and then based on that, the platform allows you to identify which outcomes are most relevant for this particular community or group of people, and and to build a theory of change around that. So that's an interesting anecdote. So I'll give back to you, Noemi, and then we can show the interesting part about how it all comes together.
Just to follow up to what you have said. So what type of skill sets should one possess in order to be able to leverage AI?
It's a question for me?
Yeah, just following up from the presentation that you just gave us about last week's poll, where people were talking about, gaining practical skills. Do you have any word for somebody who's asking to say, what are the skills that I need to be able to leverage AI?
Yes, I think we see a lot of concerns from MEL practitioners that maybe AI and other jobs, that maybe AI will steal my job. And how can we address it? The reality is that AI will not steal anyone's job, but people that use AI might steal your job. And AI, I like to give the example of a knife, like a very sharp knife, that if you give it in the hands of a chef, they could do amazing stuff. But if you give it in the hands of someone that's not experienced, it might create harm and injure. And if you just leave it lying down in the kitchen, it will not do anything and it will be useless. So also like this AI, so the best way for practitioners to become more relevant as we go into this AI revolution and impact measurement revolution is just to try things out. And there are a lot of free tools you can use from ChatGPT and many others that you can play around with and see that your skills stay relevant and the human intelligence comes out.
So wonderful. So I just want to let everyone know that the questions that you've sent in the Q&A, we shall take a full session just to address those questions. But in the meantime, I would like you all to continue with the presentation. Maybe some of the questions will be answered in the presentation, but even though we still have time to go through the questions that are in the Q&A section. So yeah, please just take over and continue with the presentation.
Thank you. So just being conscious of the time, it's now top of the hour. The webinar will continue for another 30 minutes. So we're very happy for everyone to stay. But if people need to jump, don't worry, we will share the recording also for after. But it's worth staying so we can also ask questions. Because we are about to enter the most interesting part, maybe, of the evaluation process, when you actually have evidence and everything comes together. So I want to come back to the project we created before, just earlier, Water for All. So now this project already has data. So just to recap, in the beginning, I showed everyone how to create a project and to build a theory of change. Then Gesa and Annabelle showed us how to create surveys in multiple languages to collect data, and then this data is analyzed. And then we can bring it all together and connect all the data that was collected to specific indicators and to visualize that. So this is how it looks. This is a project that already has data, and I can see 330% change in total in 3 outputs, 3 outcomes, and 0 long-term outcomes. So this is a test project, and we see 3,000 people affected and different partners in different organizations. So it's already kind of a project that has a lot to say. Let's go specifically to this part, to the impact tracking. So if I go now into the details, I can see the output section. So in the output, I can see, for example, the total number of people trained. So this is a project that helps people, that allows them to improve the access to water. And part of the output is to train people. And we can see a nice visualization of the number of people trained every few days, every week. And I can also see in orange the target. And this is a nice visualization for an M&E professional that wants to monitor the progress, to quickly see and get access to what the target we set and where we stand now compared to the target, and to see it over time. And I can edit the target, I can add value, and the data can come from a host of data sources to this output. So these are outputs. More interesting is to see what's happening in the outcome. So let's start actually from this outcome of feeling of safety. And we see women and girls perceived feeling of safety and increase a change of 500%. So what does it mean? So I see here a nice graph that the y-axis is women and girls perceived feeling of safety, and the x-axis is time, and I can see an increase. But what does it mean? So if I go to the view source, I see that what's behind this data is actually qualitative data. And we can see the actual quote of what people are saying about their safety. So the question that was asked is, describe your feeling of personal safety in day-to-day. A very open question that was asked for women and girls just to describe their day-to-day. And women are just answering really open questions, like what we saw with Ngesa, that in their own native language, they just speak freely. And it's being analyzed. And it's being analyzed according to different topics. And this analysis is specifically taken when people are talking about security, and it's taking the sentiment. So when people talk about their personal security, how much of what they're saying is in a negative sentiment and is a positive sentiment, and then tracks how that changes over time. And I can see from a very low place that people talk negatively about their personal security, this situation improves. So in other words, what we're seeing here is a quantitative visualization of qualitative data. People spoke in a very open way about what they feel, and they just basically told stories about their experiences. And the system allows you to quantify it and see a trend without hiding the stories. The stories are still there, and I can look and see exactly what people said, but I also get the analysis of the trend. So this is already something very interesting, and I can see the change over time from people's stories. Let's also look at the quantitative data. So I can see here school attendance rate. So again, this is a project about improving accessibility to water, which we believe when we build the theory of change, that because specifically women and girls are used to collect water, and that took time from their day and didn't allow them to go to school, that we've seen an increase in school attendance. And indeed, I see a small increase, which is great, but it's very small. Like the trend, even though it's not so small, it's 29% increase, but still, I want to look deeper into that. So here, what I'm able to do is to see the difference between girls. So this is the number of girls attending and boys. And here I see something interesting. The number of girls is increasing sharply. So I see my project is probably having a big impact on girls' school attendance. But when I separate it only to the boys, I actually see a decrease. When I look at it together, the average is a small increase. But when I look separately, I saw that actually boys are going less to school. And that's not so encouraging. So now this is what the system tells me. But now, me as a male practitioner, it's my role to ask the question. And the question I might ask is why? What causing the boys' attendance to decrease? And that's very interesting. And this is the role of the male practitioner, to ask the question. But then we can use the AI to answer. So once I have the question, I can simply go to the dashboard where we saw all the raw data. I'm going to go to Water for All Populate, this project of Water for All. And I will open Ask Ngesa. What we saw before, Ngesa, the digital version of Ngesa. And I will ask just a simple question of what might be the reason for boys' school attendance, for the decrease in boys' school attendance. So I'm asking the question, but the AI helps me find evidence that might help me answer. So I get quite quickly a response. The decrease in boys' school attendance is due to economic reasons and feeling of being overwhelmed in a more competitive classroom. Some boys have left for economic opportunities, while others feel less important and unable to keep pace, leading to their decreased attendance. And it also gives me where to look. So I get the AI summary, but I also get the actual quote of what people said, and I can see the actual quote of what people said and see different. I can see, for example, only the negative stuff that people said about it, and the quotes can be, "I've noted a slight dip in boys' attendance, primarily among those who are already struggling academically. And some of the academically weaker boys appear to be withdrawing," and so on. So I can here go and examine the data. What the AI really did, what Ask Ngesa did, it looked through all of the data that the project has and suggested ways to answer my question. But now it's the role of me as a practitioner to actually go and make sense out of it. So this is a way how man and machine can work together. Wonderful. So I have this, I already answered an answer, and me as a practitioner, I can also now go and do changes to the project and suggest ways to mitigate this unintended impact that I created, unintended consequence. The last thing I will show is something that a lot of people are struggling and taking a lot of time, which is the act of reporting. So as MEL practitioners, we also want to be able to share the insights that we find with our colleagues, with our partners, with our donors. And usually it's done through all kinds of visualizations and reports. And what the system allows to do, it has a really simple way to generate an impact report automatically. So and with all kinds of templates. So I'll choose a template that's called the 5 dimensions of impact. Some of you might know it of the impact management project. But we can also create, you can create your own template to create it. And what this now system does, it takes all the data of the project and puts it in the relevant format to create a project draft. Okay, so I can see the report is ready. It was quite fast. And I'll open it, and now I'll share. Yeah, I'll see the different screen where I can see it. And we can see here how it looks, the project. So I get a project, a report with a table of content, and already with all kinds of visualizations about the graph we just saw. Some data is missing, some data, yeah, we can see all the indicators with the narrative, and the actual visualization. And we see here, and this is a draft. So from this point, me as a project manager, I can edit, I can delete, I can change, I can move things around. This is like a kind of Google Doc. I can share it with my colleagues, so they so we can work on it together. I can add comments, and at the end, when I'm happy, I can print it as a PDF. So I can print it here, download as a PDF, print it or share it as a link. So easily to create the first draft. And we understand that writing a report is a long process that involves many people, but sometimes just bringing all the data together takes the most time, and to start from something blank, it's very hard. So this feature allows us to start from a first draft that is already according to a specific template with all the visuals there. And my role becomes not the role of the author, but the role of the reviewer and the person that brings makes sense out of all of the report. Beautiful. So I think I will stop here. There are many other features, but this is a good overview of of everything we have. If people are interested and are curious to try it for yourself, we'd love to share it with you and to allow you to play with the system yourself. If you have a specific project in mind that you want to test it on, more than happy to have a chat and discuss that. And I think I'll now give the floor back to you, Noemia, for whatever comes next.
Thank you so much, Yael. So I don't want to take a lot of time. I would like us to do the second poll, but as we are doing the second poll, I would also like us to address the questions. We have quite a number of questions today. It's been an interesting presentation. So Annabelle, let's have the second poll. And as we're doing the poll, I would like you, Yael, to address the question from Alice. So she says, I'm interested.
So Alice,
yeah.
I'm interested about the sequencing of the analysis. Usually we think of the change we want to see and then the intervention that can bring about the change. But in an example, we started with a clear idea of the project and then constructed this theory of change. So could you have any reflection on that? So you're right. There are multiple ways to start, and the best way to start a project is from the problem, and from the problem to understand what change we want to create, and then build a theory of change. And the system supports that. In fact, we encourage that. We encourage to start by getting insights and interviewing all the relevant stakeholders and asking them what problems to face now and what change they want to see. And once we have this data on the platform and I click generate outcomes or generate output, etc., the system will suggest to me what outcomes and what theory of change might fit to what all of the stakeholders do and say. So in a way, it's a way also to facilitate that flow of building a project, and which is obviously the best one. So this is Alice. Let's see other questions.
Let's the one from John.
From John, how culturally sensitive is this AI model? For example, ChatGPT used to be Western-centric, unable to generate content relevant to Southeast Asian countries. Will your AI model be similarly affected by these implicit biases? So John, I'm happy to tell you that we started building this platform 7 years ago, and we built AI models and verification processes that are specific to the world of international development, basically meaning working in the global South. It includes Southeast Asia, Africa, and Latin America. We trained on a lot of data points that are unique to these contexts, not the generic stuff that ChatGPT is based on. So a lot of the biases that you see in ChatGPT or other standard AI models will not exist here. But like any model, like anything, there are always mistakes and always biases. So we really encourage people to use our tool as an assistant, and not as someone that leads the way, but someone that helps you as a professional to do the work.
So the question still comes back also about what AI platform are we using? So I'm sure I would like to answer that again.
Yeah, it's a good question. So our platform is multimodal and multi AI. So like I said, some models we built ourselves specifically for the context of monitoring, evaluation, and learning, and working with vulnerable communities. And some tools we use for in standard tools like the OpenAI and Claude and others. It's basically an agent approach that every task is broken down into many small tasks, and then we choose the right model for each one. So there's no one answer of which model we're using. It's a result of a lot of work that was invested, and specific emphasis was given to never share sensitive data or any personal data with a third party. So a system, any data that you enter that is sensitive, that is identifying a person or anything like that, is never shared with a third party, with ChatGPT or something like that. Everything is anonymized internally.
So there's also a question that, can we import already existing data we have from other sources, or can I export the data collected? Does our system do that?
Yeah, so you can import any type of file, any type of resource that you already have. You just upload it as a data source. We accept PDFs, Excel. We integrate with external softwares like other data collection tools like Kobo Collect, JotForms, TowerWorks, etc. Just plug it in and in the integrate. And all the data that was collected can be exported either as a report or as an Excel with the raw data.
Thank you for that, Yao. So I'm sure you've already answered the question about sensitivity and in terms of sharing data, but I want you to look at this one to say, can other organizations use our system, or is it exclusively for rural census?
Yeah, so we build this tool for the use of any organization that is impact driven. So if your organization is meant to improve the lives of people or improve in the planet, the environment, we offer you the opportunity to use it for your benefit. Some elements of it we'd love to show you and to demonstrate for free, but to use the full platform, it's a paid service, not too expensive, something that most organizations can afford. And if you're interested in trying it out and then maybe exploring it for your needs, please reach out to us and we'd love to give you a custom demonstration.
Okay, so there was also a question, I think, when you're demonstrating about the attendance for boys and girls, to say, how did it translate the quantitative? How did it translate the quantitative data?
Yeah. So it's a part I didn't see for the interest of time, but there is a whole part of the platform that allows me to create that integration and basically to say that for this indicator of measuring safety, I want to use the qualitative data and I want to measure the sentiment, the positive sentiment, and how that goes. So whoever's interested in this particular part about how do we link a qualitative data into a quantitative indicator, please reach out. We'd love to show it to you more in depth. We just didn't have time to go through it today.
Okay, so we have two more last questions. How is quantitative data counted for frequency estimation? How do you ensure one response is considered per respondent, even though a word may occur several times in a conversation? Any comments on that one?
Yeah, so the way we analyze qualitative data is not by counting words. It's actually using artificial intelligence. We look at actually what people said and understand the meaning from what people said. So when we check the frequency, we don't check the number of words. For example, I feel good showed, but we measure the number of people that address their personal safety in a positive way. So it's more than just counting words or traditional ways of data science. It's really leveraging artificial intelligence to understand the meaning of each sentence and the meaning of what each person said. And that is a really big tool for when we work with qualitative data.
Thank you, Yao. So I want us to take this last one. So Paul is asking, can we integrate sensors, for example, a camera to see how people move in an area like a park or a reading room?
That's a really good question. We can upload photos, but and we can integrate sensors that send time series. For example, if I have a solar panel and I want to measure the energy produced and stuff like that, that can be done. Actually, integrating a camera, we didn't integrate it yet, but it's a really wonderful idea for moving forward. And Paul, let's talk about what use case you had in mind. Happy to explore that. I actually think we're going to meet later today, Paul.
Okay, so you've answered the question on associated costs, and I just want to echo that if there's anybody that wants to explore our platform further, please do get in touch and we can schedule a demo, and then you can also be able to explore our platform. So I'll take it back to maybe Ngesa if you have any final remarks or any remarks that you would like to share with us.
Not quite. I think it would just be nice if people could share with us their sentiments of how they feel about, moving from how they work now to now embracing this end-to-end tool that essentially would work. What would work? What wouldn't work? What are your reservations? I'd particularly myself love to have conversations with you. I'll drop my email in the chat just in case you'd like to mull more about this, or you can reach out to any one of us, Yao, myself, Noemia. So it would be nice. What does adopting this practically look like for you? And if yes, what would you love? And if no, what's your reservation? But also just thank you for taking your time and listening to us.
Thank you, Ngesa. Yao, any final remarks?
No, thank you for everyone that came. I think coming here or signing up to this webinar shows that you're already taking the first steps of being innovative and taking the leap of faith into this new AI revolution. And our role, the way I like to see it in rural census, is to help organizations that do good to do even better. So anyone that wants to have a chat and talk about how you might do things in a more productive, more efficient way for organizations, please reach out, because this is our role in the world, to help good organizations to continue doing good.
Thank you so much. I also just want to say a few words before we head out. I'm wearing my badge, using AI for good. And that is our slogan. Wherever we are, we want to use AI for good. I mean, we want to measure what matters. So we want to encourage organizations to come on board so that we can all use AI for good. And before we all log out, I just want to say that our series is continuing. We have the third session next week on Thursday. And in this session, we are diving into the ethics and data privacy. There's been a lot of talk on privacy and also ethics. So we are going to dive into that. So look out for that session. We're going to have speakers that are very, 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 very experts in this field in data privacy. So I would urge you to join in so together we can learn and together we can use AI for good. We are going to send out the session presentation, or rather the resources, to our emails for everyone that took part, and also those that registered but did not have time to join us. Look out for that email. You will get all the resources and the webinar recording. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. The emails have been dropped in the chat, and we look forward to hearing from you, your feedback, and all the other questions that you may have concerning the platform. So from all of us at Rural Senses, just want to say thank you so much for joining in. We'll see you next week on Thursday.
Thank you, Noemi, and thank you everyone for joining.